All right, everyone. Thank you for letting us round you up after that break. Hope you all enjoyed the tour. I'm pleased to be joined by Andrew Pfeffer, Andy, head of venues and events for SKIDATA. So we're going to be talking about the connected stadium. And as everyone kind of trickles in here, I know people are being pushed in by our staff here. I wanted to start off, we have a 20-minute chat with Andy. I think this is obviously a really good topic for us to discuss today. So we're sitting in a stadium, we're looking out over a parking lot.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about the journey SKIDATA helps to take customers and fans on, and where you guys started. Maybe start with your name, actually. I think that's a really good table setter for the audience here.
Yeah, Andy Pfeffer, oversee venues and events for SKIDATA, but my background, like many of you, I come from the team side of the business, having worked in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball.
Now, the origin of the SKIDATA name.
Yeah, everyone says, well, what's SKIDATA? How is that related to venues and access into the 49ers, who are a partner of ours? And we started 40 years ago in Austria, and hence the name SKIDATA. We started on the ski slopes of Europe, and today we control, 80 to 90% of the ski market in Europe, and a large part here in the U.S. So if any of you ski at Jackson Hole or somewhere in the U.S. or been to Europe, the access gates that you go up on the slopes are SKIDATA, and that's kind of where we started. And then it went into parking, which I know is kind of an unusual nuance for a stadium access provider. So we've got some real expertise. We lead parking here in Northern California and Southern California and across the U.S. with our technology for access, including San Jose Airport, which many of you might have flown through. And then on the venue side, we do big stadiums and venues across the globe, including the San Francisco 49ers, our partner, and a special thanks to Moon Javed and his group at the 49ers for putting this on, Taylor, and SBJ. I think it's an unreal event to have all these people come together in tech and talk about new ideas. So thanks to Moon and the 49ers, our partner.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. And so we have this slide. This is the one slide for this presentation, so it'll be kind of a persistent visual while we're up here chatting. So Andy, take us through this slide. I mean, it's the fan journey, as you mentioned. SKIDATA started 40 years ago on ski slopes, and now obviously it's evolved a ton in the last 40 years.
Yes.
Where are you guys focused now in terms of some of the biggest problems you're solving for clients with this fan journey and all these touch points that you guys help track?
Yeah, I think the biggest questions for teams and venues and sports, and it's not just here in the U.S. and Europe, is this idea of connecting data and analytics and technology across disparate platforms. And typically what I had seen, or what we had seen for a long time, is that if you're at a team, you've got your marketing folks doing loyalty platforms and membership, your stadium ops doing parking, your ticketing folks doing access control at the gates, and then all of these other disparate elements around concessions and retail. All that data is flowing back up inside the team, but you couldn't really figure out where it was coming from. Was it the same person? Was it Taylor, the one that parked in the lot and came in lot A and gate A and then went up to his suite and then purchased something at concessions, or who was it? And it's like, this is a common element that we've seen at teams. And we said, look, we've got this enterprise platform that we can build together that would integrate ticketing, POS concessions, retail, parking all together. And the key was, what could we do to track an individual fan or user through the entire journey so that we could get an integrated 360 view of that person. And that's kind of the holy grail in the sports space that really hadn't been thought of. I know it's been thought of, but hadn't been done. And so the enterprise platform that we provide, that you see up on the screen, without replacing any of those partners, the ticketing systems, the POS systems, concessions, and retail, integrates with them through one key thing: a single credential, which is issued by the team through SKIDATA. It's your relationship with the fan, and the ability then to track them and associate that single ID at all of those touch points within the experience.
And what operator are you typically working with, is SKIDATA typically working with at sports venues? And does it vary based on the type of sport or the type of venue, across the sporting industry?
No, it's a lot. Just from ticketing alone, we have 150 ticketing partners across the globe that we work with and we're integrated with. So obviously here in the US, you've got Ticketmaster, who we're closely partnered with, who works with the 49ers and a lot of NFL teams, SeatGeek, and a number of others here in the space, Paciolan in the college space. And that's really the essence. And then on the concession side, you've got Micros and Appetize and Venue Next. And all of this really depends, the ability to track that individual and to have this enterprise platform that the team controls, again, depends on that individual credential connecting to those integrations with those different partners. And that's the key that's really allowed us to do that. Today, Matt Seebeck, who's the Chief Experience Officer from the new St. Louis City MLS club that's coming online in February, was supposed to be with me. And we were going to talk about what he's doing at MLS. They're building a new stadium and entertainment district, a little mini city in St. Louis with the new team. And his idea or his vision was, when we spoke, was, hey, Andy, how could we take from the beginning of the fan journey of purchasing a seat to entering a parking lot, to entering the stadium, to secondary access, to payments and retail, to even outside the venue itself with sponsors and partners at retail, how could we connect that experience? That's where we want to go. And if Matt had been here today, he would say, hey, look, we looked at it from a holistic view of not isolating technology. So there's great players in the space in parking that do that separately, in payments, what I call access providers at the front gates. But the ability to put it together is what St. Louis is going to do, I think, really for the first time, and take all of these elements. Some of our partners in the space do a few of the modules, maybe parking and access, or maybe secondary access and payments and loyalty. But this will be the first time, I think, that one venue from the beginning will take all of the components. And the reason why, two things that St. Louis would tell you. We want to enhance the fan experience. What does that mean? That he wants to make it easier and more seamless for them to get in. Why should I have a separate parking pass from a separate ticket? I've never, from the team side, understood that. And now we'll be able to combine that experience. And part two of it is the data and analytics, which a lot of you are here for. What could we learn from integrated data and analytics in real time? And what do we do with that data for revenue generation? So, kind of part two is taking that data that we learn about the fan experience and the journey and translating that then into revenue generating opportunities.
Perfect segue. So you mentioned St. Louis, and Andy mentioned Matt from St. Louis SC. He couldn't make it today. He was scheduled here, but scheduling didn't work out at the end. So there would have been a third person up here sitting. It would have been an interesting case study. But using them as an example, they have a blank slate. They're a new club. They're just launching. So come to work with you in SKIDATA kind of from the get-go for their operations. So talk to me about two things, how you can work with a new club like that, where they have a blank slate, to impact their revenue operations, and then an existing club, like the one in the venue we're sitting in now, or other partners of yours, and how those two different types of clubs, both old and new, can see results on the revenue side from working with your tech.
Yeah, I think the success really with St. Louis was we've got someone in a chief experience officer who's interested in data analytics and the whole experience. Even if that's a new blank canvas, which is really easier to implement, but you've got people like Moon and people who understand here at the 49ers, where to go as well. It's really the people at the top of the organization who can think of this as a much more holistic fan journey to put the different pieces together within their organization. But with Matt Seebeck in St. Louis City, obviously, they're building a new stadium, they're building new parking lots, they're building a new entertainment district. It's a lot like I talked to the SoFi people for the Rams, Chargers, and SoFi Stadium. It's a similar to what they're doing in SoFi, building what I call a mini city. And the idea here with whether it's St. Louis or working with the Anaheim Ducks and OC Vibe that they're building down in Anaheim is how do you take within this mini city and these entertainment districts like SoFi, how do you take the parking, because 365 a year, you've got people coming to this for retail, shopping, restaurants, bars, living. How do you take that environment there and convert that data for the team itself so that they're talking to each other, it's integrated? Generally, it starts with parking, right? The first thing that you've got to do, whether you're a resident or you're a visitor to this district, you've got to park. And just because we just so happen to have, some expertise, some real expertise, leading expertise in technology, which St. Louis City will use, will immediately pick up on who's parking at what time of the year, whether it's a game day or not a game day. And that's incredibly valuable advice then, or valuable information to the team, because the team starts learning who's coming to visit this entertainment district, this mini city, even if it's just a stadium. And that's the first point of contact. And how does it connect to the bars and restaurants that are in this? And the way we're doing that is through a single credential tied to the ticketing partner, tied to the POS, tied to the parking, with all the data coming back.
And building on that mini city phrase you were mentioning, first of all, give us a few examples of what you would consider a mini city.
So SoFi is probably the biggest one lately that you've seen in LA, that they're building 290 acres, I believe, if I'm wrong. I don't know if the SoFi people are here, but 290 acres or so of, hotels, restaurants, retail, office space, vertical garages, anchored by, one of the best stadiums, probably the best stadium in the world now, because it's the newest, latest, greatest. And so that's the type of thing for a mini city. And I think there's a lot of owners now that are looking, Atlanta in the Battery with the Braves play was one of the first baseball kind of entertainment districts. That was great. I don't know how many people have been to Atlanta, but same kind of thing in Atlanta. And I think as more and more teams are building new venues, they're looking to build the surrounding area to monetize and to leverage the asset.
Mm-hmm. And what is SKIDATA seeing with these mini cities, with the fan journey from vehicle to seat and back, or from home to seat and back, today, after the peak of COVID and the roller coaster sports industry's been on? What's SKIDATA seeing with your partners and these points of contact that are on this slide here?
Yep.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen, if any, that are really notable and that you're having to work through with your
I think a few are really start around access into the venue. Coming into COVID, you see a lot of stadiums with handhelds, right? Coming into a stadium, that requires a person and labor. And that was kind of the traditional way. Probably about 85% of the market was using handhelds. Once COVID hit, owners and teams started thinking, well, I'm not sure I want my fans necessarily integrating and being that close to a ticket taker. And not only that, but coming out of COVID, many of you know that labor is very difficult. So the main thing that I'm hearing from teams and venues now is labor is hard to get, which means ticket takers are tough to get. It's expensive. It's a much bigger charge on their P&L than ever before. How do we automate this process in a way that makes it a better experience for the fan to get in? And how do we lessen our costs because labor is so difficult to get? And one of the things that we've done, you see, if you look out in the parking lot where you came in with the 49ers, we've got mobile turnstiles and the pedestals here for secondary access. But what that allows is fewer people at the point of entry, 1 per 4 to 1 to 6, instead of having a person on the handheld. That lowers your labor cost. It also is self-entry. It's kind of a nuanced thing that the fan or the customer then enters on their own without someone telling them that they can come in. I think that's probably been the biggest change. And then I think on the payment side, a lot of venues are looking for cashless payments. It's faster. The throughput's faster. The experience of getting something for ordering is faster. So we're seeing some clubs that are utilizing either discounts, loaded value, depending on the status of the member of that club at certain lines. And the 49ers did it for their season ticket holders last year to get through the lines more quickly and more efficiently.
Forward looking with our over the next few minutes here, Andy, revenue generation, new opportunities, or perhaps enhancements that you see over the next 3 to 5 years. I'm curious what you're seeing with SKIDATA, and I'd say during COVID, Sport Techie saw a ton of acceleration of digital roadmaps, of tech roadmaps, of tech investments by teams and leagues and all sorts of properties, because they needed to adjust to what COVID was throwing at the fan experience. So now all that's accelerated. I'm curious what that has created for the next 3 to 5 years, where those ideas may have sat on the roadmap, but they were pushed forward and now executed upon. What are you guys seeing with your partners that you're excited about over the next 3 to 5 years on the revenue generation standpoint with that dynamic playing out during COVID?
Yeah, no, I think St. Louis is another good example. They're thinking about coming out of COVID, building a new stadium, how they're going to amplify and leverage revenue streams. And that's always the hardest part, right? What do we do? What actionable insights do we have with the data that we collect? And there's no one right or wrong answer, but I think if the more individualized personal data that we have based off of that singular ID that I'm talking about, the more I know about Taylor in terms of his attitudes, preferences, and how he interacts with the club, whether it be through social media, online, coming to the event, forwarding his seats, parking, purchasing concessions and what jerseys and retail. The more we know about him, obviously the more we've got the ability to customize and personalize new offers that are relevant and meaningful in the space. Now, having said that, we've been talking about that for years. I think some of the things we're talking about now are, something that we're looking at and we've done before is called Merchant Connect, the ability to take that singular ID outside the venue 365 days a year with your sponsors in the retail space. If my belief had always been if we can make a payment inside of a venue, right, at concessions in retail with a mobile phone, and we know who it is, we can do the same thing outside a venue with our sponsors and know exactly what the spend is. And that's kind of what I see happening next. The other really interesting component that we've taken a lot of questions on, depending on what state you're from, is sports betting has obviously taken on a much bigger play in what's going on. I think, in the future, some of the data that you control, some of the membership at some of these clubs will be integrated directly with those platforms.
That kind of leads into one of the last few questions I had, which was, what would you see being one of the biggest kind of wow moments for a fan attending a game at their favorite team's venue over the next few years when they walk up and something's just different about their experience and they're so thankful it's there? I'm curious because there's so many areas where contact and friction and point of sale issues are being removed, and that's kind of becoming the new expectation for fans. What are some of the new wow moments you see that are delivered through tech?
I think this notion of a single credential to get into parking, and I think there have been several teams that have talked to us about parking, and they said everyone says, well, parking's parking, but no, there's issues there. Is LPR, license plate recognition, is something we do outside of the sports space, and I think what you're going to see on the car access side is more and more LPR, license plate recognition, whether it's gateless or gated, using your single credential. Just like you tie your credit card to your payments account inside a venue, you could tie your license plate or your Easy Pass in California directly to access. I think that will become an important component. People don't usually think about it. That's something St. Louis City, again, is thinking about LPR. I think the other thing is access into a venue, both using your same ticket for parking directly into the venue. It's not that long ago NFC wasn't around. I think what we'll go to, the day of the barcode that you currently see, I think in 5 years, I think it'll be all NFC. And then next generation stuff that we're talking about, looking at for innovation within SKIDATA is BLE. So if you go to the slopes of Jackson Hole and ever ski there, you never even have to take your phone out at Jackson Hole now. There's a gate there that can read it through Bluetooth. And then we've got wideband, some other innovations coming. So I think you're going to see more seamless wow entry coming in. And everyone's talking about facial rec. We do facial rec too, but I think facial rec will always be an opt-in and maybe get to 30%. People are always worried about privacy laws and giving away their identity online to someone. So I think that'll always be 20 to 30%. I could be wrong on that, but I really think this notion of not taking your phone out, BLE, some of the other innovations working with wideband will change the way gate access is done in the future.
And we're starting to see some of that with like the walk-in, walk-out, some of the Amazon stores or non-Amazon stores. Is that an example of BLE?
So we've worked with teams that use Amazon Go or some similar applications. To get into those venues, you need access control. You need to know, can't have anybody just going in. It has to be a member who has signed up and put their credit card in. So there are gates at those grab and goes a lot of times because you can't just have anyone coming in. So we are working closely with them as well.
Okay, great. Well, Andy, very much appreciate the time. Wanted to work this in general, the fan journey. It's something we'll be covering a lot more. It's an area that is just always being evolved through different use cases, different technologies, different departments at teams and leagues investing in that journey. So thank you very much for joining us and discussing it today.
No, thanks, Taylor. Sports Techie has been great, and appreciate the opportunity to come.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.